Yes, I hope so, because I just...
Good evening. Welcome to the annual general meeting of Richmond Clinical Commissioning Group. That's me. I'm a GP in Hampton. I've been working in the NHS for 30 years plus, and I note that this year was the 70th anniversary of the NHS, and I had the joy of going up to Westminster Abbey on a fantastically fine day, in fact, the warmest summer we've ever had, to celebrate this organisation which continues. So today is going to be a report on the last 12 months and looking forward to the changes yet to come. As long as I press the buttons in the right order. So my tasks: fire exits. There aren't any fire alarms expected. If a fire alarm does go off, try and keep up with me as I head towards that green door and evacuate from the building. If you have got a mobile phone and don't want to be embarrassed by it, you might want to turn it off now before you find what strange ringtone your family put on it for you. I'm here to try and keep us to time and finish on time, and I need to have a little spiel to read to you because we are on video. So this meeting is being filmed and will be published on our website as part of our commitment to making information as accessible as possible and to improve transparency and record keeping. The camera, you'll be relieved to hear, will actually focus on the panel members, but if you do ask a question during the question and answer session, your question and the response will appear on our website. So that's all the spiel over and done with. The agenda is as up there, so a brief sort of introduction by me. Then we've got a number of speakers, and we will finish with a question and answer session from the floor. Richmond. Many thanks to the Public Health Department for this wonderful infographic that tells you sort of what's going on in the borough of Richmond. So there's 190,000 people live here. We actually have just about 10% more, about 220,000 people registered with GPs. As you can see, high level of employment, a vast number of volunteers, number one in London. Very green. You can see 40% of the borough is green space with 100 plus parks, it says there, and 21 miles of river frontage. Loads of tourists. If you don't get caught up with the 82,000 at Twickenham, you can get caught up with the million odd that come to Hampton Court each year. That's the 34th most visited place in the UK. So, if I believe Google, number one being the British Museum. So looking at that, you'd think a fantastically healthy, wonderful place to live and work in, or work from. However, if I flip over, you can see the three sort of criteria that we as a CCG think about: the start well, the live well, and the age well tranches there. You can see that among, hopefully everybody kind of read that and see, rather than me read it out all to you. You can see on the highest in London among the children's bit is alcohol and illicit drug use. So although you might live in a very popular and affluent borough, there are some significant harms there. There's a level of obesity in children. We have a national level of obesity. Adults in Richmond are one of the thinnest in England, but actually the obesity epidemic is creeping up on us as we speak. In the adult population, you can see our number of rough sleepers has gone up considerably. You can still see that there are still 18,000 adults who smoke, so opportunities for health gains there. And if you look at the elderly, you can see nearly a 50% increase in the next few years of over 65s. That'll be me. I'm looking forward to that one. And you can see that although we have a very long life expectancy, there's a significant proportion of elderly people who have multiple hospital admissions in the year before they die, some of which are probably unnecessary. So there are lots of healthcare opportunities, even though, as I say, it's a green and wonderful place to live. Healthcare is all about how much we spend. There's been huge debates about taxes in the NHS, so I'm going to hand over to tell you all about the finances to our Director of Finance, Yalini.
Thank you. So I'm Yalini Roberts, and I have been Director of Finance at Richmond CCG from April 2017, and prior to that I was Director of Finance at Kingston. So it's been a fantastic opportunity to be Director of Finance of both. So I'm here this evening to just take you through, very quickly, don't worry, our 2017-18 annual accounts, and hopefully I can work the clicker. So I'm going to skip some, I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to give you the overview first. So in 17-18, as other health organisations, we had a really particularly financial challenging year. We set a deficit plan that was agreed with NHS England, and that was of 5 million. And actually what we did do is we delivered to that plan. And in order to do that, we needed to produce savings of 9.4 million. Another target that we have to adhere to is our running cost target. So how much do we spend on administration of our services? And for Richmond, our budget was 4.3 million, and actually we came in slightly under at 4.2 million. So we reinvested that into healthcare. We are in the second year of our financial recovery plan. We know that we spend more than our allocation, and specifically on acute hospital activity, and mental health and continuing healthcare. And we realise that actually, Graham's highlighted in the JSNA that we've got before us, that we need to work with our partners to try and look at a more effective way of managing these costs going forward. So, if I tell you how we spent our money in 17-18, there we are. I'm glad the pie chart worked. It didn't work in Kingston, so it's quite good to see. So our allocation, we receive a national allocation of just £262 million, but we spent 267, hence our deficit plan. But how did we spend it? So we've got a population of just over 217,000 people who are registered with our practices in Richmond. We spend just under half, so 49%, in acute commissioning services, just 130 million there. And then we have significant other chunks of money, specifically mental health and continuing care, and primary care and prescribing as well. So I think it's quite interesting to see the split of monies that we have here. In terms of moving forward to this year, we were given a target for 2018-19. We were asked to set a balanced plan, and in order to do that, we have to achieve savings of 16.1 million, which obviously is incredibly hard, and actually we cannot do alone. What we have done, though, is we are working with all our partners across health and social care, and working with our colleagues in South West London to ensure that all the schemes that we are looking at avoid duplication. We're looking at joining up health and care teams and looking at improving patient experience. And hopefully, if we're doing it once in the right place at the right time, we're also reducing the cost and drawing out those inefficiencies. We know that we spend more than the average in terms of continuing healthcare in Richmond. But what we're doing here is we're ensuring that the criteria we use is consistent and in line with national guidance. We're also looking at larger transformation schemes. We cannot do it alone. The size of the ask is too great. So we're looking, and have started working with Kingston Hospital I think I'm right in saying that 45% of our patients flow into Kingston Hospital from Richmond. And what we're looking at with them is an outpatient transformation scheme. So we're setting up an outpatient transformation board. We're looking at a newer and more modern way of how we might deliver outpatients. So we could look at advances in technology. We could look at telephone referrals and consultations. So we're working together to look at that. And we're also working with our colleagues in South West London to look at some of the national criteria to see how we can implement that across the system. One of the ones that we're looking at and have agreed is the over-the-counter medicines. So we're hoping that for 18-19 we will deliver our plan. We recognise that there is significant challenge, but I think the key for us is to continue to work with our partners to ensure that we have a future financially sustainable organisation. So can I take questions later? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there's going to be a series of presentations, as you can see from the agenda, and then we'll have a panel question session at the end. So we kind of did all right on the finances. How did we do elsewhere? So we are subject to scrutiny, so people look and see how we are doing. And in these areas, so we were NHS England, which is basically the group that assures us, the group that makes sure that we're on track, rated us in the following areas. So cancer was outstanding. That rating is based on 4 indicators: early diagnosis, the 62-day wait from referral by a GP to treatment, the 1-year survival rate, and overall patient experience. So we got outstanding for that. We got good in the other areas for maternity, which looks at neonatal mortality, that's mortality within the first 28 days of birth, and stillbirth rates, women's experience of maternity services, and choices in maternity services. Mental health, we were rated as good. There are 5 areas that were looked at there: improving access to psychological therapies, recovery rates, the early intervention in psychosis, waiting times, children and young people's mental health transformation, and crisis and liaison mental health transformation. The rating for dementia was also good. If you remember back a few slides, it's estimated that we've got 2,000 residents of Richmond suffering with dementia, and we have a target that we have to reach in identifying those, and we reached our target, as well as producing plans for their care. And in diabetes care, we aren't particularly high in diabetes in Richmond, but again, it's a growing area. And there are various NICE treatment targets which we had to achieve to get to there, and we were rated as good in all of those. So, as you can see, for cancer, all our targets were met. Referral to treatment, the 18-week from referral to actually being seen and treated in outpatients was met. Dementia diagnosis rate, which I just referred to, we hit our target rate. And although we actually reduced the number of hospital bed days lost, our delayed transfers of care, we didn't quite reach that target, but we did improve on the previous year. As you can see, none of this is the CCG. This is working with lots of other organisations, our acute trusts, our community unit, of which there is a representation here, the mental health trusts, the IAPT services. So as commissioners, we try and influence, contract with, and encourage these other bodies to work in a positive way. So friends and family, you can read all the bits that we achieved on. So you might think we live in a wonderful borough and we're achieving very well. What's left to do? And the answer is plenty. A couple of key areas. Everybody, I'm sure, is aware of the 4-hour target for A&Es and the 95%. Neither of our local acute trusts are currently meeting that. Westmead does very occasionally, but not consistently. And so we think that's another area we need to focus on. and the continuing healthcare assessments. So as Yarini noted, we have quite a jump in spend for continuing healthcare. We've actually changed the way we're looking at that, and we hope to improve that situation as well in the coming year. So overall, we did quite well, but there are still areas to improve. So I'm going to pass you on now to Sarah Blow, who is our Accountable Officer for Richmond CCG, which I was talking about, the way we link together, which is also part of South West London. Sarah.
So good evening, and it's lovely to be here in Richmond again for my second AGM, which is fantastic. Fantastic year we've had this year, 70th anniversary of the NHS, celebrating with all of our colleagues what a fantastic health service we have in this country, and how we thank all of the people that work within our services and that support us every day. And I think that's really important. So, and you will have seen, I think, on the roll that was going up before we actually started, some of our heroes in the NHS and some of the people that work in our services. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the achievements that we've had. Oh, no, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. So, primary care, we have extended access to primary care in Richmond, and you can get an appointment in Richmond out of hours at the weekends with a GP that has access to your records and that can support you if you have a long-term condition or would like to be seen in a way that works with your own hours of work or what you're doing in your day-to-day life. And we've continued to do that, and we're working with our GPs to make sure that when they're looking at hospital referrals, they're of the highest quality, and we've done lots of work with local practices to make sure that that's in the best place it can be. And another thing, in case you didn't know, in previous years, the NHS, I think, was supporting the international trade in fax machines, and we've decided now not to do that because we don't think that's actually a really good way of working or a good way of delivering services. So we have switched off all of those manual transactions between our hospitals and our GPs, and it's now all electronic. And so from 1st of October, there are electronic referrals going into hospital, and the information coming out is electronic as well. So that's really positive. And we are sorry to the fax machine people. So Teddington Urgent Treatment Centre is now what they call a national urgent treatment centre. So there are some specific things that you have to deliver if you're going to be an urgent treatment centre, and that's making sure you have the right medics on duty, that you have the right access to diagnostics. And what we've done is we've brought together the walk-in centre and the GP extended hours service, and it now is a fully functioning urgent treatment centre for the people of Richmond, and that's a really positive move forward for us. So we did a lot of work last year to engage with the public on what we should prescribe and how we should deliver services locally, and some of you maybe have been involved in that. And in 2017 the decision was made to stop prescribing some things like gluten-free foods in certain cases, vitamin D and so on. But since we did that, they've actually had a national consultation on some of this, and nationally now people are working very differently. So Richmond was forefront, but it is something that's happened across the country. Children, young people's mental health and well-being is one of our priorities, not just in Richmond but across South West London. I don't know if you know this, but we have some of the highest levels of self-harm in our young people across South West London. We actually know that we could do more to be supporting people by working with our partners, with our schools, and with our communities. And children, young people's mental health is a high priority in Richmond. So we are looking at our services, and we are extending our single point of access, and we're introducing a new and expanded service for young people, and also making sure that assessment happens much earlier than it does currently. We've also in South West London applied to be part of the National Trailblazer, looking at children, young people's mental health and working with schools. Richmond isn't part of the first phase, but what we have done is we've said we'd like Richmond to be a fast follower and be second phase along with Kingston and Croydon. So we're hoping to get some money nationally to help us to implement that, to work with our communities and schools. So adult mental health services, so Graham talked about our psychological therapies, or talking therapies, it's sometimes referred to, and actually we do deliver really well on that, but we are expanding it, and we're looking at people's, not just their mental health, but their mental health and physical health together. We know that people with mental health problems, actually their physical health sometimes also deteriorates, and we need to support them in a different way. So we want to look at our IAPT services, and we want to focus on those people that may have long-term conditions, diabetes, respiratory problems, and we want to make sure that they get the support both from a physical and a mental health support. Also, the crisis house has been really, really successful, and there's a quote there from the police. This is to support people in the community when they're having a mental health crisis, and so they don't need to be sectioned, which can actually be quite a traumatic process. And the crisis house, we know, has been helpful to individuals, but also to the services, so that there is somewhere for people to go. So that's been a very, very successful service, and we hope to continue that going forwards. It's nice to see our colleagues here from Hounslow and Richmond Community Healthcare Trust. They've done a lot of work with us around diabetes. We're now working with them and GPs to make sure that we support diabetic patients in a different way. We make sure that they are supported in the community, they receive education, and they can manage their diabetes in a much better way, so that they actually are supported more in the community. So I'm sure that our colleagues would be happy to talk about that afterwards with people if they would like to. We're also looking at our frail and elderly population. It was really nice earlier to meet with Age UK and some of the work they're doing, working with GPs and others to discharge people home from hospital so that they can live more independently rather than being stuck in a hospital bed. And GPs have worked with not just Age UK, but other voluntary sector organisations and social care to make sure that we can support people differently, and they have very clear plans around how they might go home. We're also looking at what we call MSK, musculoskeletal conditions, and we now have a single type of service across the whole of South West London. So everyone is triaged into a multidisciplinary team where they can be seen really quickly by physiotherapists, by GPs with a special interest, by other experts in musculoskeletal conditions, so that they can be seen quickly, they can get the appropriate care in a quicker way. And if they do need to be seen in hospital or have an elective operation, they are going through the service very quickly and into the right place. So just a little bit about South West London, because we are part of South West London, and obviously the focus for us is on the local borough level work, but we are in a partnership, and our patients don't always stay in one borough. They sometimes go to different hospitals or access services across the piece. So we have reviewed our plan for South West London, and we called it a refresh. And we do have that on the South West London website if you'd like to go and look at it. And what that has done is said, actually, we need to make sure we've got really strong plans locally at a borough level. So we are developing our health and care plans, and I know that Tonya is going to talk later about the health and care plan for Richmond and where we are with that. As I said, we've identified children and young people mental health as an area that we want to focus on, particularly around prevention and supporting our young people. They are our future, and we want to make sure that for South West London we have the best services and the best support for young people. We met together, so we decided that actually there are times when, as a group of CCGs across South West London, we need to make decisions together. So we have set up a governance structure that supports us to do that. One of the decisions we made was about allocation of transformation funding for primary care, which means that we could support primary care, and now we have a standardised approach to that across South West London, so everybody gets the same amount of money, regardless of which borough you live in. We also did a lot of work around cancer care at a South West London level. Graham mentioned 62-day waits. When you're waiting on a pathway for cancer care, often you're being transferred between hospitals and specialist units, and sometimes that pathway for patients can go wrong and it can take longer than it should. So we've done a lot of work across South West London with all of our hospitals to make sure that when somebody has cancer, they are managed through the pathway as quickly and appropriately as possible, and that they don't have lots and lots of waits at different times. So we are working together on that. The other thing that we did last year was we looked at how do we communicate around winter and flu. Winter comes every year, surprisingly, and sometimes we're not as organised as we could be, particularly around how we communicate. So we're trying to get key messages out to the public around how they can access services, you know, actually going to see a pharmacist rather than a GP. How can you, you know, if you've got a cough and a cold, this is the best way to deal with it. So we're trying to get that sorted again for this year. We also worked with care homes to say, actually, we'd like everyone to have their flu jab, and it's really important that we support people so that they are not accessing services at a time when it's really, really busy, and we are supporting in the community in a different way. So I'm not going to say much on this. This is about future plans, and I think I have talked, and Graham has talked a lot about some of these things. So we talked about mental health. We've talked about young people and mental health. We've talked about GP access. I think that one of the things that is at the bottom and actually should be at the top is the focus on clinical quality and clinical leadership. We actually have high quality services. Congratulations to Kingston Hospital for getting an outstanding from the regulator CQC for their leadership and for some of their services. Actually, we're very lucky to have very good services in this part of the world, and we need to make sure that we continue to have really high quality services, and also that our clinicians are forefront in what we do. So that's something that we want to do locally and across South West London. So I am now going to introduce something that's less boring instead, which is Vicky, who is going to come and talk with some colleagues about Children in Care Council. Are you okay?
Thank you.
It's that one to go forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Vicky Fraser. I'm the designated nurse for Children Looked After in Kingston and Richmond. I'm here this evening with some special guests from the Children in Care Council, who will introduce to you after I've gone through some of our slides. The reason that we're here this evening is to talk about a project that the CCG have been undertaking with the Children in Care Council. And the Children in Care Council is not just a local initiative, it's something that happens nationally, and all local authorities should have a Children in Care Council to work with, to think about improving outcomes for our children and young people who are in care, and also our care leavers up until the age of 25. At the CCG, our role is really to raise the profile of the specific health needs of looked after children, and work across the whole health economy so others are able to support, and specifically think about mental health, but also how adverse childhood experiences can impact on physical health across the lifespan. Somebody has done it for me, which is very kind of them. Okay, so most children and young people become looked after due to abuse or neglect, and 2/3 will have a special educational need, and almost half will have a diagnosed mental health disorder. But given the experiences of this group, actually there are a lot of children who will have some mental health need, but not have a diagnosis. So it's really fantastic to hear that there's a real commitment across South West London to be thinking about improving outcomes for our young people across their lifespan. One of the things that we've done is a project with the Children in Care Council, who I have to say are volunteers, so part of our volunteering numbers in the borough. They are very involved with the corporate parenting group, who are we have counsellors on the corporate parenting group, so their voices are being heard at a really high level, and that's really important so that there's some empowerment for the group. They will talk a little bit themselves, but basically they do loads. They have a weekly meeting. They've just come back from the summer, and they're raring to go. They've been doing Duke of Edinburgh Award, and they've also with us been taking part in the project, which is Young Health Champions. The Royal Society of Public Health offer a qualification at level 2 for young people aged 14 to 25 to really get them engaged in thinking about health improvement. So there are 3 compulsory units and 1 optional unit that are undertaken to achieve that award. We are 95% of the way through, and most of the marking is done, so we're very close to being able to hand out some certificates. But the main aim is really to help our young people engage with their peers and give some positive health messages. So the optional unit that our young people chose as part of their action plan was mental health, and we've been working away to skill them up and get them able to work really effectively with their peer groups. We've also undertaken an art project with a therapist from Achieving for Children, which is displayed at the back, and it was entitled Together and Apart, really thinking about how, you can have a mental health diagnosis and actually be very well a lot of the time, but sometimes things aren't going so well. So it was to raise awareness about self-care and improving outcomes. We've got a short film which will show you of how that sort of came to fruition. Okay, thank you very much. So I'd like to invite up to the front to join me Julietta, Natasha and Will, who are members of the Children Care Council, and Michael, who's the participation officer. I've got some questions for them. Okay. So this is Will. Will, could you tell us why you got involved in the project?
So firstly, I sit as the chair for the Children Care Council. And as part of our action plan that we redo every year, we wanted to add mental health into our little project because some of our group actually do have mental health issues, and although some of them you can see, others you can't, and we wanted to explore more about that, and we got into contact with Vicky and made it all part of our initiative to actually train ourselves up in mental health issues so we could go out and help other people, so we can help across the board, and that was one of our goals. So when we finish this, hopefully we can set up a little workshop or something to help people with mental health issues. So that is our end goal.
Thank you very much. Beautifully said. Let's go next with Natasha. And my question to you, Natasha, is what have you really enjoyed about taking part in the project?
What I've enjoyed from the project is that we all worked as a team together to build our confidence up together and work together on how to involve mental health and work through the differences between mental health.
So, How do you think this will benefit you looking forward?
I think this experience has probably benefited all of us, because obviously mental health is such a big issue. Well, not just Richmond, like the whole of London and the world. And then the more people who are informed, the more people we can help. And then you can never have too many helping hands.
Thank you very much. And just quickly like to ask Michael a question. And how will this benefit the Children in Care Council looking forward?
Well, I think it's the Youth Health Champions training has enabled the Children in Care Council to come together as a group. They've prioritised issues around health and mental health. It's a key issue for young people, for all young people, whether you be looked after or not. It's a key issue for young people. And I think the Young Youth Health Champions has given them sort of two areas, really, new skills in how to sort of talk about mental health issues with young people, and as well as improving their own knowledge base. So it's really helped them to understand a little bit more about health and mental health. And they're going to use this newfound skill and knowledge to really sort of benefit and to support other young people coming into the Children in Care Council, but also the Children in Care Council run a youth provision every Thursday night at Heatham House for other young people looked after, and those young people are care leavers. So they may not be part of the Children in Care Council, other young people coming in, but hopefully some of the knowledge that this group has achieved will benefit them to be able to support and hold discussions and conversations with those young people about mental health issues and other health issues. So it's going to be hugely beneficial for them.
Thank you very much. Could we just give our lovely young people a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you. And please do take a couple of minutes at the end to admire their beautiful artwork, because this is its second outing. We were at Kingston last week, but we're hoping to have many more outings with it. So, and I'm going to hand you over to our next speaker, is Tonya.
Thank you, and what an act to follow, eh? I'll try to be as inspirational. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tonya Michaelides. I'm the Managing Director of Kingston and Richmond CCGs. I've been working in Richmond for about 18 months now, and previously worked in Kingston. So unfortunately I couldn't make last year. I had a parents' evening, so I'm really pleased that I was here today. I'm coming to talk to you about the Richmond Health and Care Plan. This is a real looking forward piece of work now. So very much a live piece of work, and the aim of the Richmond Health and Care Plan is to outline our ambition and aspiration for transforming and delivering the health and care that the population of Richmond has told us they aspire to and want over the next 2 years. So it's very much a live piece of work. We are aiming to publish the Richmond Health and Care Plan in March 2019. And the Health and Care Plan for Richmond will focus on where working together with partners across health, social care and the voluntary sector will have the maximum impact for local people. It will be a 2-year plan for the next 2 financial years, and it will be informed by the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, or JSNA, which is the health and wellbeing board priorities and current plans and programmes of work. Really, really important to shaping our health and care plan is what the local population and people have been saying to us. So it will also be informed by insight from engagement across Richmond and South West London over the past 2 years. So engagement is really, really key. Want to go out and talk to as many people as possible about a health and care plan. Caroline, our engagement lead, is sitting at the back. If you would like us to come and talk to any of the groups that you work with, or anyone you think would be interested in the work, please let Caroline or myself know, and we'll come and have a conversation. It is really a partnership approach, and the partners involved are seeking to agree a few priority ambitions and actions in each of the areas that Graham spoke about before, that start well, live well and age well. And the plan will be jointly owned by the local NHS, Richmond Council, Health Watch and the local voluntary sector. And the plan will be given oversight by Richmond Health and Wellbeing Board. As I say, it's very much a work in progress at the moment, and we have started to identify the priorities, but I haven't listed them here. But Caroline has got information on the priorities at the back of the room, so please go and have a look. If you've got any comments, please leave them or speak to us, and we'll make sure that it's reflected in our plans going forward. So just the next slide is just a milestone slide, just showing you how we're going to go through the production process of the plan with the end date for March 2019. We're at the moment, we're in the second circle. So we're looking at the case for improvement and the priority setting with stakeholders. And so that piece of work is September to November. So we're right at the beginning of that piece of work. So lots of opportunities to be involved. And I look forward to sharing and working on the plan with partners over the next couple of months. Thank you.
Doesn't seem to, it does. Marvellous. Thank you for that audio. Thank you to all our speakers. You'll be delighted to know, if you have an agenda in front of you, that we have now reached the question and answer part of the evening. I have had a request that we speak slowly at the front panel, so I will just relay that. Some of us got a bit excited and carried away with our speeches, which is no bad thing. And I'm sure we can also provide a slide pack, Caroline, at the back, or one of our members, for those of you who would like details of the slides that we've shown so far. So there is a roving mic at the back, just to remind everybody again that we are being videoed, just in case you weren't here at the beginning. Shall we start at the back and work forwards?
Hello, Rosalind Graham Hunt. Make a few comments and I've got a question. Thank you, Sarah, for talking about NHS 70. I went to the birthday party at Kingston Hospital. It was very moving. There was a presentation about mum and babies and baby immunisation, so they no longer die of things that we don't think about, like measles and that. I'd like to say a personal thanks to Dr. Kate Moore, who was my GP at Hampton Wick Surgery when I lived in South Teddington. Then I moved to Dr. Amanda Childs, and now I live in Hampton and I'm with Dr. Meera Raja, and they've all been excellent. My question is GP opening hours. I was a little bit stunned when you said they're open at the weekends. Are they open at the weekends? What's going on?
So not all practices are open at the weekends, but the hub and access to GP appointments is now 7 days a week, 8 till 8. You can book into those appointments through your GP surgery. Over the weekends, 111, the national triaging service, can also direct patients to those appointment slots. It won't be necessarily your GP, because most of us are now part-time, so we don't work all the weekends as well. But whoever sees you will have access to your clinical records, so can actually pull up on the computer screen. There are two hubs, one is at Teddington, the other at Sheen Lane Health Centre, and they can see your records, and what they type in will automatically be entered into your GP records as well. So there's no need to fax or send letters as to what's been happening. Okay, I think there was a lady at the front. Entirely up to you.
Yes, good evening. I'm actually out of borough. I come from the London Borough of Hounslow, and because my GPs I thought were inefficient, I used to jump in a taxi and go to Teddington, which was very good. Sadly, they closed the pharmacy, and I'm very pleased to see that it's now an urgent care centre. Somehow, I don't know, I had an email about Orleans, and I used to go there to do an art project, which was very good. And even though I was out of borough, it was a good project. I don't know whether you know Parkshot. I got invited to go to Parkshot to do the Wellbeing Project, which was set up by Vince Cable, the Liberal Democrat, whose mother suffered from depression, and he set up this project, which was extremely good, and we all benefited to it. It got you out of bed. You made friends, and the food in the cafeteria is very good. The other thing is that regarding the 1-1 practice, because I'm a Brentford because I live next door to the health centre, they told me to ring 111. But if you are near your practice, you can actually go to your practice and they will make an appointment for you with your practice, which is nearest, because they told me at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to Hillingdon, Hounslow or Heston, and I had a big argument with them, and I said, but I live next door to Brentford Health Centre, and they said, okay, you can go there. So what I want to know is, could you please come and manage the London Borough of Hounslow, because you manage your borough, your healthcare, much better than we do. Most of the doctors have left our practice, and the locums don't turn up, and I'm losing hair in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we'll just say thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to put a question or a comment to our panel? There is a mic coming.
While you're here, I can't let the opportunity go.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Denise Carr and I am a local resident. I just wanted to raise with you a couple of queries that came up at our last night's meeting of our patient participation group. And actually the chair is here, so he can chip in if necessary. If you can't answer them sort of now, they're issues to take away maybe, I think. The first one is, you mentioned about cancer and your outstanding performance with regard to cancer, and also about the electronic data sharing now, so that you've got primary care communicating with the hospitals electronically for greater efficiency. But one issue that came up at the meeting last night was that our GP practice wants to do the post-treatment reviews with people who have suffered from cancer and have had their cancer treatments. And one of the problems or difficulties with this is that they are not, the GP surgery, is not getting advice from the hospitals about the discharge of people from a cancer program. And it's because, although they may have finished the chemotherapy or the clinical input, they're still going to be called back every 3 months or 6 months or something like that for checkups. But it seems to me that at that stage, and we agreed last night amongst us, that rather than the GP staff trying to find out who's where or doing an annual phone around or something, it would be very helpful if the clinicians could just say, right, this person has finished their ongoing treatment, as it were. Of course, we will continue to see them every 6 months, but now is the time for you to start the planning around this interview. You're nodding, so you know what I'm talking about.
So Kate actually wants to come and answer that, I think.
Oh, okay. And I have a second question as well.
Do you want to do both? And then we'll...
Okay. The second one is about equipment. This happened to come up last night, although it's been an ongoing issue, I know. In terms of efficiency and value for money, and we're very good at recycling in this borough, as you know, we're a bit concerned that nobody seems to want to take back Zimmer frames, crutches, wheelchairs sometimes. Now, I know in the past we've raised this and we've been told, oh, well, it's not efficient or financially efficient to retrieve all these things and clean them up and then use them again. And you can't get a charity to take them, although we were told that the Princess Alice Hospice might do it. But we literally had a case where, you know, somebody either died or whatever, and there were many frames in the person's garage, because presumably every time he went into hospital he was discharged with another one. And but humour aside, really, the point is that this is a terrible waste of money, whatever way you cut it. If we can't use them, then at least they should be going to a charity or Oxfam or something. But even if you had 1 day a year where you say, right, bring to the Clarendon Hall everything, you might find that you get... I just think it's an area that really could do with sorting out.
Okay, I think Kate at the back wanted to take the first one. We have people planted in the audience. I love the idea of a kind of assistance amnesty day where you can bring in your Zimmer frame and your crutch and nobody asks any questions. I think that sounds fantastic.
So I'm the Vice Clinical Chair of the CCG, I'm a GP as well. And Denise, you'll be pleased to know that we have leftover Zimmer frames in the boiler room, and they're very good for drying our wet cycling gear when we cycle to work in the rain. So they are being put to good use. But more seriously, onto your question about the cancer care reviews. I think, obviously, Bonnie's here as well and has helped develop that enhanced service and the reviews. So I think I agree with you. There is some difficulty in knowing when has the hospital discharged you, when does the responsibility hand back to the GP. I think what we've been trying to work towards is the hospital sending us a pro forma, end of treatment pro forma, and when we receive that, that should activate the review by the GP. However, in practice, we're going through our own list at the moment at the practice, and it can be quite difficult sometimes to see. And I think my pragmatic approach to that is, first of all, to try and work more closely with the hospitals to give them that feedback and make sure that they're adhering to the process that we want. The second thing is, what we tend to do in our practice is try and pick up the phone to the patients and talk to them about actually what stage are you in your treatment, and be fairly pragmatic about it, because obviously we have a list with the names and telephone numbers, and hopefully we have those established relationships with the patients. Bonnie, I don't know.
Yep.
Hello, my name's Bonnie Green. I wear quite a few hats, but I've been involved for many years with being involved as a patient care representative in improving cancer services in London. And I was a member of the Transforming Cancer Services team that worked on the recovery programme, of which the cancer care review is one element. The element above that is what's called a treatment summary. And that's been the one element of the recovery programme that has been really slow to take off. And I know now that all of the hospitals within RM Partners, which is our London Cancer Alliance, are now all working on their different tumour pathway treatment summaries. So they should be coming out over very soon, because I know that they are working on them, and it's been the one area that's been really slow in take-up. But it should be happening very soon. And the reason it was brought up last night is I'm trying to get some patient experience of people in Richmond who have had a cancer care review, because we want to find out how it was for them. But it should be happening soon.
Okay, thank you. I think Sarah wanted to just make a comment about your appliances.
So one thing I would say is we are actually very lucky on cancer services. We have some of the best cancer services in the country in South West London, and some of the best outcomes. So I think that's really positive for us. Doesn't mean it's perfect. I'm sure there's more that we can be doing, and it's thank you for colleagues for those responses. On the integrated community equipment services, I've heard this in a lot of areas, issues around equipment, and actually I do know, and I have heard lots from those that run those services, that actually sometimes it is not cost effective to take back particularly items where they're not very expensive items in the first place. But I do understand the frustration with that, particularly when we're all trying to be as efficient as possible and there may well be wastage. So can we take that away and talk to the integrated community equipment service? I think the idea of having an amnesty is fantastic, and we could suggest that to them as well. So if we take your details, and we'll make sure we get back to you with some kind of response from them on that. Is that okay? 14.
14, not 40. Okay.
Thank you. This is moving away from Zimmer frames. This isn't a question, this is actually a thank you. I'm Sophie Adam, I'm the Chair of Trustees at Off the Record, the Young People's Counselling, Crisis Counselling organisation here, which the CCG do fund part of our services currently. And it's just a thank you that you see it as such a priority, young people and mental health, because the number of young people accessing our services, and we've got an increasing number of satellites, is increasing all the time. Our waiting lists are increasing all the time. And the issues that young people bring to counselling are increasingly complex and multiple. Mm-hmm. So I think the fact that, and I work closely with Doreen anyway, it's important that we work together. The number of people I've spoken to who say, yeah, no, it's great you're doing this, and actually it's a you problem. It's actually not. This is a borough problem. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you take it so seriously is a big thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we are very lucky in the number of voluntary organisations that we have here, so thank you as well. Catherine.
So timely. I'm Catherine Williamson, Director of Richmond CVS, a support organisation for the voluntary sector in Richmond. I think, Sophie, thank you for that. It was an excellent example of partnership working between the voluntary sector and the CCG. And obviously, as many of the panel members will know, I'm very pro-partnership working, and I think there's a lot of positivity going on at that strategic level about how CCG can work with partners, including the voluntary sector. It's really good to see in the annual report reference to the social prescribing pilot that's been carried out recently by local charity Richmond Aid. I suppose my sort of question and comment is really that obviously partnership working is not easy, and we all certainly agree it is the way forward. It's the only way we're going to be able to cope in these difficult times we're in, certainly financially. But I feel there is a lot that we all need to learn around sort of coming from different perspectives and different cultures as such. And I suppose my question is, I do believe, at the strategic level there is that buy-in to working together, but I suppose it's around how all partners work together through all layers of their organisations to increase understanding about sort of being able to join things up. And so I suppose I was wondering whether panel members have got any thoughts on how we can all work to help do that, to ensure that this sort of commitment to partnership working, and particularly including the voluntary sector, can sort of be carried out in practice through the layers. And I'm particularly thinking about sort of certainly getting messages across to the GPs around the value of the voluntary sector, for example, particularly in relation to things like social prescribing. So really looking for views, and obviously happy to play a role as well in helping that to happen, but I'd be interested in your thoughts.
Okay, so I'm going to hand down, I think, for some of this. I mean, it's helpful that you've been around now for a while, because my GP colleagues have long memories and it takes a little while before they get everything. It's helpful that we've now got this what I think of as a single point of access to the voluntary sector, because although it's fantastic to have the number of voluntary agencies that we have, I struggle to keep them all in my brain and know where the phone numbers are and exactly what they do. So I think that's been a great advance. And obviously we appreciate the work that you do. If anybody wants to pick up any of the other...
So I would just say that, so I recognise that actually working together is how you actually build the confidence and the knowledge and understanding across the piece. I do think social prescribing is a really good tool for that. General practice, I mean, it's difficult when you've got 10 minutes with a patient. You've got to identify everything they need and remember all of the hundreds of organisations that are out there to support you, not just the voluntary sector, but even the NHS organisations and the social care organisations. So actually having some kind of coordination of that, I think, supports general practice and also builds confidence for general practice in the services that are out there, because then their patients will come back and tell them what a fantastic experience they've had and so on. So I think it is about how do we actually do some of that work together. So the children, young people, mental health is another really good example where actually when we're working with schools and communities, the voluntary sector will be key to how we work together in order to support those local communities. And I think it's by the doing of the work together is where we build those relationships, recognising this is not always easy for any of us. And I think there are huge cultural boundaries sometimes to get over.
Tanya?
From a very local level, and I say thank you, Catherine, for your support and work with us. I think what I really value is the constructive challenge back. Have you thought about the voluntary sector? So absolutely CCG is committed to using the voluntary sector, but actually also resourcing the voluntary sector appropriately. So it's not enough to expect the voluntary sector to take more and more work on without recognising that there is something around the capacity. But I think for us, it's the real challenge back to say, have you thought about the voluntary sector and anything we do, and the role that the voluntary sector plays or could play, potentially play, because as statutory bodies we don't always think in that way. We don't automatically think how can the voluntary sector support us, particularly around a less medicalised approach to care. So I think working with you on that real constructive challenge back, and I'm sitting here racking my brains. What did we sign off? I can't remember. The compact. We signed off the compact with the governing, so that's our commitment. But I think that real constructive challenge continually, have you thought about the voluntary sector and the role that they can play in our plans going forward, is really important. And then our role is to make sure that that message is through our teams, have they thought about this? Is this something that we should and can support the voluntary sector to deliver for us? So that's what I would say.
Any other? I'm just going to see if there's anybody else, and then we'll come back. Is there any other?
Hi, my name's Rob Clark. I'm Director of Care for INS. It relates to the last points, and particularly to access and to our services and other voluntary sector services, and the implementation of paperless referrals. So at the moment, our IT systems don't talk to each other at all, and I'm aware of situations where GPs simply can't refer to us because they don't have access to an IT system that can refer to us. So there needs to be a better integration, not just of our services, but accessing our services in the voluntary sector in the first place.
That's where I think social
Okay. Okay.
So I do think that's where the social prescribing comes in, because as I said, it's difficult for GPs to do a referral into lots and lots of different organisations. The idea of the social prescribing is the GP can refer to a coordinator who will then coordinate those services across the voluntary sector so that they can then make sure people access the right services. And I think that's a big change, and that's a real opportunity about how we work with the voluntary sector and general practice.
I think after the ladies, yes. Just
SPA in the London Borough of Hounslow means single point of access for those with mental health difficulties. I am bipolar and I have dual diagnosis with other illnesses. When I see my GP from the beginning of the year, I write in a book everything I want to ask him, and then he says, do the scripts outside because I haven't got more time for you. But then you keep a record of what we can say. We wanted to have a patient participation meeting, but Brentford Health Centre said that they would be charged for the room, and so we couldn't have it. So I just thought to say to patients, when they go to the doctors, make a list, keep a book, otherwise you get in there, they say you're 10 minutes up, and sarcastic you say, well, I'll bring an alarm clock next time. And it does make everybody's life easier, because the doctors, my last doctor did 33 hours in the morning, and that was before he did his patients.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With my Richmond MenCap hat on, we are supporting National MenCap, who launched a 3-year campaign, Treat Me Well. I see nods at the table, that's great, which is aiming to improve the service for people with learning disabilities in hospitals. And it's all about simple changes, reasonable adjustments, as they're called, which is maybe more time for an appointment, communication, avoiding jargon that helps to explain to somebody what's going on, the opportunity to come and see a setting before an admission to hospital for a planned treatment, for example, and written information in accessible form. I know Tanya knows about it. We've been raising it with the direct providers, including the hospitals, and I'm delighted to say that we're pushing at an open door, because actually all the staff that we've spoken to actually want to be part of this. They want to improve their training and support on learning disability awareness, and hopefully over the 3 years we'll notice a difference. But my question really is, do you see it as part of your role in terms of monitoring the delivery of services that you're commissioning, whether in its acute service or the Richmond and Hounslow Community Trust, for example, of monitoring this aspect, particularly over the next 3 years, so that we can see whether we're really making a difference or not?
Short answer, absolutely yes. One of my other roles is I'm the learning disabilities lead for South West London. So I'm very, very, very passionate about we get these services right for people with learning disabilities. So yes, I do. I think it's a simple absolutely. And working with partners to understand the challenges if they can't implement the guidance. But actually for me it's around equity of access for every member of our population. So absolutely, and also improving the health of people with learning disabilities. So if you have any, I'm glad you got an open door, but if you feel that it would help, I mean, I will obviously in my conversations with providers discuss it, but if you feel that there is some challenges there, let me know and I'll try and unblock them.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I think a number of other thank yous then. Thank you to my panel for sitting up here and fielding all the questions with me. A big thank you, I think, to Vicky and the people you brought along, and a reminder of the artwork behind. I've been told that actually speaking in a public meeting is one of the most terrifying things you can be asked to do. So thank you very much, and our thanks.
I'd like to say, if anybody has any questions for the young people, they said you write them down and I'll email. If you give your email address, they'll respond to you. Apologies, they have to.
Okay, did everybody get that one? So if you have questions for the people who are here, if you write them down and give them to Vicky and your email, they will respond. Thank you to you for giving up your time this evening, and I wish you all a safe trip home in these slightly shortening days. Hopefully it's still daylight.